Meet Aputure's first ever tube light, the MT Pro. 36 pixels in 1 foot, with CRMX in any color. Unleash your creativity with one or many. Leading the industry in pixel density, the MT Pro produces ultra-smooth chases and effects unmatched by any other light.
It's time to change the way we think about lighting. Introducing the new Anglerfish series from iFootage. Boasting cutting-edge color reproduction without sacrificing portability, the Anglerfish series makes cinematic lighting more accessible than ever. The Anglerfish series utilizes a bespoke construction and a new one-of-a-kind LED element to recreate the full spectrum of the sun with unbeaten accuracy. This unique LED element recreates the full daylight spectrum, but without the blue peak that's typically found in even the top studio lighting products.
My eye on the dance floor, eye on the door. Hey, a DJ, you like the way I sway? I gotta get it.
Lady, go!
1, 2, 3, 4. It's glass, yeah, you're gonna shut up. Battle your battles, you gotta tell it how to the cure. If it's trash, yeah, you're gonna take it out. Handle it rapidly, got the magic, you got it for sure. You can see what's in future. Alpha.
Meet Swit's latest RGBW panel innovations, the Van Gogh 70 and Van Gogh 100 LED panels. The Van Gogh series uses exclusive edge-mounted RGBW SMD LEDs, which results in an extremely thin 21mm LED panel that is fanless, making zero noise on set. The time division drive technology makes Van Gogh up to 60% brighter than its competitors in RGB mode. You can count on extreme color accuracy with a very high CRI and TLCI. Thinner, lighter, brighter, and quieter. These are the Van Gogh Ultra Slim RGBW panels by Swit.
offer.
Hello everyone, welcome to ProAV. Thank you very much for joining us for the second of our little tech team rambles. Is that what we call them? Sure, they're a bit rambly, aren't they?
We are now.
Tech team chats, Q&A sessions. I'm joined by Richard. How are you, Richard?
Absolutely fine.
I'm joined by Luke.
I'm grand as well.
And I'm joined by Nathaniel. You hanging okay over there, Nathaniel? You by far got the most work to do out of all of us.
By design.
Yeah, all good
He's
there,
probably
all
the
good.
youngest as well.
And
Though.
most capable.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd do a slightly different structure because last month was a little bit rambly. And so I'm going to try and control us a little bit more this month with a little bit more structure and stop us all going off on massive tangents like I'm prone to do, by just simply going around each of us and saying, well, what was interesting this month for you? It's worth pointing out as well, we're doing this on the 7th of March rather than the end of February. We are talking about everything that's happened since the last stream up to this point. And so I've broken my structure immediately with the first one that we're going to do it because I actually don't have that much for me to talk about. You know, if we split what we talk about into areas, I'm more cameras and lights, and not a huge amount has really, cameras and lenses, not much has happened this month, whereas you two have got loads to talk about. So I thought I'd sit back and do a bit of listening for a change this month. So who wants to go first?
I don't mind.
Should we rock, paper, scissors for it? Or
Yeah,
rock, paper,
definitely.
scissors. Go on, it's live. Why not?
Rock, paper, scissors, dynamite. That's what.
This is dynamite.
blows up. Rock, paper, and
That's how
scissors.
Richard has a teenage son.
No, I'm happy to follow you. I'm happy to follow you.
No worries at all. So I use dynamite. Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, Blackmagic have been busy. February is a funny month for releases. Traditionally, it was IBC, NAB for their big announcements, but they've not only announced stuff, but they've actually shipped it as well. And I think
Got one in the room next door.
we have. I've been playing with it this morning. The Blackmagic. I've been practicing this. The Blackmagic Television Studio Pro ISO. Pro 8. Oh, damn, I did practice it as well.
HD8.
HD8 ISO. Yes, basically it's a new Blackmagic television studio. It's a sort of all-in-one vision mixer. So it's got the panel built in and all the connections at the back. What's interesting about these is they've taken some of the features from their Blackmagic 8 Minis and put them into a sort of larger format. For instance, the ISO recording, which is absolutely remarkable because the ISO version will record 9 streams of HD in real time at up to 50 megabits a second. So very decent quality 10-bit 422 recording quality on all the inputs. Not only will it do that, but it will make a DaVinci project out of your edit decisions as you're cutting. So you can put it straight on the timeline in DaVinci, these ISO files, and then re-edit. So everything you got wrong, Nathaniel, if you've missed anything, you can go back and get the shot back again afterwards. So
Which is the workflow we're going to use for these streams, because we re-edit these after the fact to make a podcast and some little social reels and all the rest of it. So that is exactly what we do.
You can even, if you're using the Blackmagic cameras, you can record in cameras in full 4K.
Yes, it can trigger master recording on the cameras, right?
That's right. And all the time codes will be identical, and you can then re-edit in 4K later, or even 6K if you're using the other new Blackmagic release, the Blackmagic Studio Camera 4K Pro 6K.
It's only Blackmagic, really. You need to learn your lines in order to be able to say what the product's called.
The Blackmagic Studio Camera 6K. There we go. 6 Pro. Damn, there's a Pro in it too. Anyway, they have announced a new camera which is using their 6K sensor, which is really quite interesting because we're talking about an HD mixer being released with a 6K camera, and already a couple of customers have said, well, why isn't there a 4K version of this? Why are they doing HD? But the truth is, these things are being used mainly for live streaming. And for live streaming, I don't know anybody who's actually using 4K for live streaming. We're not.
Well, if you're not using it for live streaming, it can be, if you're post-producing your content, it can be a 6K switcher because you're recording the master files in Blackmagic RAW on the camera.
That's very true.
So you can be switching and then just edit it together in Resolve at the end of it, and it's a full 6K project. So
very true.
If you're not
then
streaming,
you can stream in 6K. Yes,
doesn't
you
matter.
can stream after the fact. Yes, is it streaming when it's just on YouTube?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'd say
it's just not live streaming. Yeah. So there are two versions. One's about 2,500. The ISO version, which I've been talking about, is 3,500. They've got a very sophisticated audio mixer built in, which has 16 channels of MADI audio, so digital audio, and you've got proper sort of LCD panel just for the audio mixing part of it, which makes it a lot easier to use in an audio sense. And there's a larger screen than you've got on the previous generation of TV studio products. It's again, from Blackmagic, it's an amazing product for the money. It has 2 USB-C outputs, or you could attach hard drives for the recording and the streaming. It's got 4 Ethernet connections. And this is quite interesting because you can use it as a hub to sort of connect laptops or hyperdecks for control without having to use other kit. Or you can even use... you can have remote cameras come in using the streaming bridges. In fact, Blackmagic have built into their new studio cameras a streaming bridge hardware, which effectively means you can remote control the cameras. Well, I think the best way of describing it is how Grant Petty showed it during the release announcement. He connected a studio camera 6K to his mobile phone just on a USB-C tether, and then brought that in remotely through the internet, and the tally, the CCU information, all work bidirectionally from this ATEM mixer, and you could control it without any other hardware, just the mobile phone, the studio camera at one end, and the ATEM at the other end. You do have to jump through a couple of IT hoops for this, open some ports, make sure you've got a public IP address, so this works. But with a half-trained IT person, you should be able to get that sort of functionality.
I mean, the natural question with that is, what kind of uses can you see people using that for? But that's a hard question to answer, isn't it? Because it is such a new category.
We just haven't been able to do this. Whereas before you might have brought in somebody on Zoom or Teams to be part of the program, we could send somebody one of those cameras at home, and they could be coming in and we could control the camera from here very easily.
And that's the key bit, because you have been able to bring people in over an HTTP stream, but obviously that was quite low quality and a massive delay and latency. Then SRT came along, which was a lot better. But the simplicity of this, because you still have to open ports and do all the IT stuff for those formats as well. And the simplicity of this, combined with camera control and the quality of the cameras in the first place, being able to record in RAW and all the rest of it at the base.
That's right. And then we can get the camera picked up or the media picked up, and we've got the very high quality stuff, not just relying on the H.264 stream, which you brought in. But that the ISO version, the HD8 ISO, can actually bring in 8 remote cameras like that, as well as cutting between 8 SDI attached cameras. This is really quite unique in what it can do. And you're right, I can't yet think of how we'd use all 8, but there are going to be some interesting scenarios where these things are being used.
Yeah. I mean, it's a powerful mixer. I guess the natural question is, who do you see being the main customer for this? Is this for ATEM Mini customers to upgrade to? Is this serving a whole category of people that the ATEM Mini never really was relevant for? Do
I sometimes wonder if Blackmagic don't really know who they've made things for, and then people find uses for it. I mean, look at the ATEM Mini. What an amazing bit of timing that was just before the pandemic.
I don't think anyone expected the ATEM Mini to have done as well as it did. It transformed the industry, really.
It did. And so this one, it can be used as a production, as a sort of for live productions, because you've got the sort of zero delay you have on these channels, but it has a very good audio mixer built in. And with their microphone converter, which is another new product they've just released, you can get, 4 channels per 4 channels of microphone in per one of those MIDI inputs. So
I think it's 4. I think it's 4. I think
how many
in total? 4 XLRs, but you can daisy chain them. So
it's only XLRs, isn't it? 1/4-inch jack.
Oh, is it?
I think it's 1/4-inch jack. But isn't this awful? My audio knowledge, because we haven't been able to do this before. I'm using MADI, banding it around like I've known it for 10 years, but really, I read it on the box and it's MADI.
You sold it to me. I was really convinced.
Luke was brainwashed.
You need an audio specialist. If there's anybody out there who's an audio specialist, come join us at ProAV.
Fantastic to have a proper audio mix. I mean, proper audio mixer. It doesn't have the pots to go up and down on. It doesn't have a lot of things.
Yeah, we don't have levels like that, but we do have pots to change it rather than sliders. It's not got. But it's got gate and delay, and you've got an awful lot of sort of high-end features from mixing desks from Fairlight.
Truckload more advanced than Blackmagic have ever gone with audio.
Yeah.
Before,
and having that LCD screen as well is it's a very interesting bit of kit. I've literally only seen it for about 2 hours so far today, so I'm looking forward to having a play.
I think there are a huge amount of ATEM Mini customers, because Mini Extreme, Mini Pro ISO, those kind of products that are using them, and there's customers using them day in, day out for a hugely important part of their business now. I think a lot of people sort of bought it during COVID as this sort of supplementary, just tide me over kind of income. I'll just get a couple of streaming gigs. It'll get me out of this rough patch where there's no work going around. Yeah. And fast forward a few years, they're now realizing, this is making up like 60% of my jobs is streaming stuff now. Yeah. And so I think people in that situation, they're going to find a lot that they like in this HD8. I think this is going to be that natural step up for that kind of customer. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that, Nathaniel, because I sort of put you in that kind of category. Is that fair?
Yeah, most definitely. I purchased an A10 Mini A10 Mini Pro ISO, and I've been using it a whole ton. Been connecting my cameras into it for simple interview setups, and got my A camera, B camera, and I would be just mixing live and recording to my SSD, and then later on put it right into DaVinci Resolve, and it saved the whole process of importing, setting up my multicam. It's almost like I've skipped that kind of that stage in the beginning.
Very
so it's
clever.
been really useful for me, and also a bit more of a peace of mind thing because I'm recording to the SSD as well as in camera, like you said. So if I want to export at 6K later, I can also relink those files, and yeah, it's been really, really great for me. Really
It's
great.
brilliant. It's the sort of workflow that I always back in the day heard people talking about and thinking, oh, that's nice, perhaps a little gimmicky. Are people really going to go to the effort of setting that up?
Yep.
Each little corporate job that they do, are they really going to do that? But you are using it. You found it makes enough of a difference for you to go to that extra effort to do.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And also, I've been using it just because I have it as a way of bringing my camera into my laptop, as a webcam as well. Yeah, I think it's great. I think also having the ability to use it with Blackmagic cameras has been useful too, because in live stream environments, when I've got 3 or 4 cameras, it can send tally to the cameras, so you know which one's on preview, which on program. You can change your exposure using the ATEM software control. So I really like the workflow for sure.
Absolutely.
And I guess the time you lose in setup is time you then save in post-production. So it's kind of like, rather than it all being bolted onto the end, you kind of stick it in the beginning part. Yeah, it makes perfect
Especially
sense.
if you're doing long form things, because let's say you're doing a church service which is going on for a couple of hours, are you really going to have the time to go back and re-edit that?
Yeah.
Whereas if you've done it live, you've basically taken 2 hours to do a 2-hour edit.
Yep.
But you may get something wrong. You may have cut. You may have a title wrong, and you've got that ability to go back and fix it, but very, very quickly.
It's that halfway house between a live production and a post-produced production,
Yes.
where you might be just uploading it to YouTube or whatever your distribution platform is, literally within half an hour of it finishing the production of the church service or whatever it is. But it gives you that buffer to be able to fix something if it's gone wrong. So it takes away a lot of the fear of live production.
And
which is important.
I think using this new mixer, using the HD8 ISO, you can even, it's using Blackmagic's cloud service, or it's cloud storage. So you could have a remote editor who's pulling these files down. I believe it has to actually finish the production, but then immediately you can, without any other hardware, you don't have to remove the hard drive. In fact, there's an offer at the moment. If you buy the HD8 ISO, it's got 2 terabytes of internal storage built in the form of an M2 drive, which I'll be stealing and putting in my son's PlayStation soon.
You dare.
And the ability to have a remote editor pulling off this footage, from the cloud and doing an edit without having to actually physically pull a hard drive out and courier it across is. Again, it's all next generation stuff.
There is a lot in these. Same with every Blackmagic launch. There's some stuff which just feels.
It takes a while to sort of fill in the mental gaps, doesn't it?
But for in terms of real world improvements that people in exactly that situation we've just been talking about have the A10 Mini lineup, whether it's the Mini, the Pro, the Extreme, no matter what it is, it has found a nice home in their workflow. What are the real big changes that they're going to see by going up to this?
I love the fact it's got an HDMI multi-view out as well as an SDI multi-view out. I think it's a little thing, but it's really useful because the ISO, the Extreme SDIs, the ATA Mini SDIs, they've only got multi-view out on SDI, so you need a converter if you want to use a TV for your multi-view out. And the HDMI one obviously doesn't do it in SDI, and the connections are less robust. So it feels a very professional bit of kit. The build quality, you said it today, the the pushing the buttons on it, you can feel when something's using decent quality switchgear. I've used let's say lesser manufacturer mixers where the buttons actually can stick after a while, and it doesn't feel like this is going to have that problem. The T-bar, I'm not talking about where you go to for your bubble tea or whatever. The T-bar, it actually feels like a seriously well designed piece of kit with a nice resistance to it. Whereas, of course, on the previous TV studios, we just had a little slider, which frankly felt a little bit naff.
Yeah, with my lack of knowledge, I thought the T-bar was to sort of increase thrust in the spaceship. That was sort of my belief of it. So
that your stream goes faster, right?
These will be used for low budget sci-fi. You can be sure.
Yeah,
especially as it lights up as you push it. It's definitely something.
Totally agree with what you're saying. When it was on the desk, I don't have much experience with products like this. I've had Atom Mini, and that's extraordinary enough in itself. But seeing it on the desk, and like you say, the buttons, the mechanics of it, the build. It was just
considering the price of this, it is quite remarkable what they put in. The only downside, or not really a downside because of the cost of the things, but the only thing is, I'm sure people are going to say, "Where's the 4K version? We want a 4K version."
Yeah.
If you're going up to a big screen or a projector, we want that extra 4K resolution. So maybe it's interesting they haven't
4K8 or something like that coming in. Maybe there'll be an HD16 or something like that. A bigger.
Well,
version.
They do have the Constellations, which are a bigger version as a sort of rack mount, and they're very new, and they have similar functionality, although there's not the ISO.
Maybe the 8's the biggest. Maybe there'll be a smaller. Maybe there'll be an HD4 or something like that.
Who knows with Blackmagic? It won't be what we're expecting, that's for sure.
Was there anything, you mentioned the 4K version, but was there anything else from the launch of that was a bit of a, oh God, I wish they'd done that?
Well, I guess the new 6K camera actually was quite interesting, because the 6K camera they've launched has got EF, takes EF lenses. What people have been asking for is a B4 version, but and they could have done that because using that 6K sensor like they've used in the Ursa Broadcast G2, you've got an area which the B4 lens can throw the image circle on, which gives you a 4K picture out. However, I think I've answered my own question. They have the Ursa Broadcast G2 already, so why re-engineer that? That's an excellent camera already. Just for cost, is it worth doing that? So. Is there anything I thought? It's really 4K. I think my main thing was, yes, please, that's fantastic. Can we have a 4K one too, Blackmagic? That's probably the gotcha for me. But back to the cameras, the new 4K and the 6K, the G2 4K studio camera, which is basically the G1 with the ability, it's got a streaming bridge in it as well, so you're able to do that remote connection over your phone connection or through Ethernet. But what's interesting about the 6K one is it has remote controlled neutral density filters. So this is something we haven't had with Blackmagic. The neutral density, even on the higher end cameras, is manual. You have to get your cameraman, somebody else can focus it, can zoom it, can paint it, but you had to get somebody there to tweak the neutral density if you needed to change the brightness levels like that. But these are now remote controlled, so you've got an electronic, not an electronic neutral density, but a servo-based neutral density that you can remotely control, even over that mobile phone connection or over that network connection. So interesting toys from Blackmagic. Yes, interesting month from them. There's loads of stuff online about those products. So take a look.
And
at
more
it.
Coming. Obviously, as we said, been talking about. We've been playing with the HD8, so there's going to be lots of content revolving around that coming soon.
And one other thing you may have noticed as I move backwards and forwards in my chair, I'm the only one of us who has his own cameraman.
Which you absolutely don't. Do you want to explain what is going on here? Why,
yes.
Why are we doing this?
You may also notice I look slightly less cinematic than my friends here. And the truth is, Canon have given me a license for their auto-tracking, which is built into their new PTZ, the N700, which I've got filming me at the moment. Now, the N700 is a fantastic new PTZ with 12 gig SDI, uses the same sensor and image block from our favorite camcorder, the 605, the XF605 from Canon. And this now has auto tracking built in, or you have to get a license for it. I think they're still undecided on the cost for those licenses. But what's unique about this auto tracking is it's built into the camera itself. It's not using a laptop or software like Bird Dog or Panasonic or Mark Roberts, the other motion control software we use. It's not using an external computer to do it. It's actually built in. So you can turn on the camera and it remembers you've left auto tracking, lock on to a person. I was using the analogy like a duckling, as soon as it's hatched, will follow the first thing it sees. And so will this Canon. And today it's me. And so if I move, it's keeping me.
It knocks over the C300 that's behind.
Yeah, there goes Luke's cam.
That was really close. And I can change the framing to suit as well. So I've got space I'm looking into, so it doesn't just pick you straight in the middle of frame. You have a bit more subtlety of control over it. So auto tracking, but built into the camera head, so you don't need. Very useful for this sort of scenario if you're in a one-person studio and. It's basically framing me if I move around a bit, but also useful for lecture capture or for situations where you just want less people to have to work on this stuff.
Makes sense.
So it is interesting, but yes, it would be great to hear from Canon how much they're going to charge for this. They will be able to add it to their other PTZs, the N300 and N500 as well, and we'll have to wait a bit longer to find out. Oh, and it's beta at the moment, so if it stops tracking me, you'll know why.
It's doing well so far.
Yeah.
It's doing well.
I think that's me done.
Nathaniel, have we got anyone chatting in the chat? So if anyone has got any questions throughout this, by the way, just leave them in the live chat as we go. I'm going to pass this over to Nathaniel every now and again. Whenever I see customers, ones coming in, I can see a bunch of people talking about the A10 minis, which is nice.
Yeah, there's a question from Joey who says, do we feel like we're due in a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K upgrade?
This is the $1 million Blackmagic question right now, is what's happening with the more cinema side of things. I would love to see a refreshed design cinematic camera from Blackmagic. You know, it's almost become a meme at this point that everyone's waiting for the full frame box camera from Blackmagic. It's worth pointing out Blackmagic's prices are the way they are, because let's be honest, Blackmagic's prices are far lower than anyone else in the industry. And on the cameras front, they are the way they are because they don't change designs that often. And so they've had that pocket design and they've tweaked it a little bit here and there, added a different mount on the front, but most of the R&D costs and manufacturing costs have stayed low.
6K Pro's fairly recent.
6K Pro is recent.
It is their most recent camera, isn't it? So
it was about a year and a bit ago now, so a little bit, but it was a modified version of the original 6K. You know, it's not a transformative new generation camera. It's a pro add-on, if you like. I would love to see some more love being given to that space, because we're in a bit of a weird place in the cinema lineup from Blackmagic at the moment. We've got the Blackmagic 4K, which is great, but you know, it's been around for a long time now, the Blackmagic 4K. Blackmagic 6K, about the same thing, and really everyone nowadays is buying the Pro version of that because it offers so much more value for not that much more money. You know, having internal NDs and a small camera like that is just, you know, that is worth the price point extra alone. But those pockets, nobody really gets on massively with the design of those. People use them because of the features they give you for the price, and the image quality is so good. And the step up from those, there's still the Ursa Mini 4.6K G2 that is also getting quite old now. There's the Ursa Broadcast, which is the same sensor as the 6K and is a sort of 3-in-1 camera. But that's not very cinematic.
No.
It is. You can use it as a cinema camera.
You're right, but
it's just a bit of a mental jump to go from, I want to buy a cinema camera, here's the Ursa Broadcast with its B4 advertising and all that kind of stuff. Then there's the 12K, which is, you know, their high-end one, which exists as it does. You know, that makes a lot of sense. That's a very different sort of style of camera and sensor technology, exists in its own little bubble, really. I just think that they've innovated a lot faster in their live production side of their business and their grading and editing side of their business with Resolve than they have in the cinema side. I'm hopeful that we're going to start to see a bit more innovation coming from them in that side of things. soon. I'm
What
not
would you
alluding
like
to
to
something
see?
that I know.
What would you like to see? Would you like them to go full frame, high frame rate?
Nathaniel's just waving at me from across the room.
I own a 6K Pro. I've loved using it over the past year and a half. And I would love if Blackmagic were able to improve on their autofocus.
Oh, tell me about it.
The camera has autofocus, but it doesn't really have usable autofocus.
Pretend autofocus.
The autofocus situation with Blackmagic is brilliant because it's a really interesting topic to talk about, because other brands that have been in a similar situation, like Panasonic, for example, it hurt Panasonic for years not having decent autofocus, and they've finally done it. They finally put it into the S5 Mark II. We talked about that a lot last month. And sure enough, we've seen sales pick up of the S5 Mark II because it's now got autofocus in it. Blackmagic have always sold very well. And so it hasn't necessarily been hindering sales. And it's a very expensive and difficult thing for a camera company to develop. You know, an autofocus system is incredibly complicated. And so for a company like Blackmagic, I would love to know what's going on behind the scenes there. Because, you know, it does have a huge amount of benefits for all of their products.
But in a way, I'd say the Blackmagic product range or their cameras are designed to be manually operated. One of the reasons they sell so well into education is you need to know how to use a camera to be able to use them. The auto exposure, the auto iris, and the auto white balance, things like that. Although good, they're not as silky smooth in transition as other camera brands. So this is a camera which you want to manually control.
For the cinema cameras, true.
Even for the studio cameras to some extent.
So this situation right here, classic studio camera environment. You know, this is what studio cameras are for, a production like this. This makes perfect sense for it. And yet we've got autofocus on now. So if I lean back, it should be focusing on me, no problem. And if I'd done that, I mean, I suppose when am I ever going to do that anyway? But, you know.
When you're showing auto-tracking, maybe.
When you're showing auto-tracking, and you did a good point. You did it a second ago. I mean, I am doubtful we will see, to be the pessimist in the room, I am very doubtful we will see major, you know, autofocus improvements in the next couple of years from Blackmagic. I would love to be proved wrong. I really, really would. Let's see what people are. We've been getting a bit of chat backwards and forwards. Do you want to see if anything, you want to mention anything there, Nathaniel?
Yeah, most definitely. We've got Joey who says the A10 Mini Extreme is a lifesaver for him. We've got James Jackson Films who asked, for me, the headphone jack and the super source are clutch on the A10 Mini. And he also says that the A10 Mini and the Yola box is a killer combo.
Yeah.
Then we have Joey who says that, to be honest, the fact that it has 2 USB-Cs is insanely helpful, as he had the OG A10 Mini, which didn't have that, unfortunately. And then On-Screen Creations says, I see you guys using the Rodecaster Pro 2. How are you getting that audio into your A10 Mini from the mixer? And I can answer that question. We're using the 3.5 millimeter audio input on the A10 Mini ISO, and we're taking that from the output on the Rodecaster Pro 2, the 6.3 millimeter jack, so the big jack, phono jack is how we're getting that in. We were initially using unbalanced cables, right, Carl?
Yeah, and that doesn't work. You get a lot of background noise and hiss and stuff like that. It needs to be the balanced ones.
Yeah, so we switched that out for some balanced ones, and that's just going in. So that's how we're doing that.
Absolutely.
Nice.
I've also spotted James Jackson Films that said a larger micro cinema camera with a full frame 3x2 open gate camera would be ideal. I mean, you're only going to get a full frame cinema camera so small, and I think we have reached the point where modern, you know, things like the Red V Raptor, the Kinefinity cameras, some of the Z cams, you know, they're about as small as I think as you're gonna get with a full frame cinema camera, realistically, to have decent record options and because yes, mirrorless cameras are smaller and thinner, but they don't have all the record options and the overheating and the design, ergonomic design that we need from a cinema camera. And so a micro cinema camera with a full frame sensor might be difficult to manufacture, I'd imagine. But I think people want to see Blackmagic go full frame. People would love to see things like autofocus from Blackmagic. And I think people are crying out for some kind of a new ergonomic design from them down in that
box
space.
Design kind of thing.
I would love it if they did a box design.
Yeah.
I mean, other cameras are doing it well, though. You know, if you look at Kinefinity's box camera design, it's brilliant. It's one of the nicest camera designs on the market.
Yeah.
And you've got obviously Red doing a very similar sort of thing with the Raptors and the Komodos.
BS1H and
that
BG1H
kind of thing.
from
Absolutely.
Pana.
Absolutely. Right, shall we move on a little bit over to the world of lighting, Luke? Because oh boy, have you been busy!
Yeah, it's been a busy month, exciting month. I think sort of Aputure, Amaran have kind of taken the bulk of that busyness. 30 new SKUs is kind of where they were at, which is just incredible, really.
Incredible.
You know,
12 new light fixtures
it's
on one day they launched.
I think historically, and from someone who's come directly from a brand, in terms of like your marketing approach, you kind of always want to spread it out a little bit. You kind of, rather than one big spike, you kind of just want to dampen out over a longer period of time to keep the excitement. They've just gone whole hog and just launched everything, which is
Throwing the kitchen sink at it.
Yeah,
they really did.
Which is exceptional. It's very exciting to be able to do that. And I think in that mix of products, there are some really new exciting products, and then there's some refreshed on some existing products. So I'll start with the refresh on the existing. So the Amaran range, so the X and the D series. The D are daylight, so daylight balance, 5,600 Kelvin, and then the X are bicolor variants of those. Amaran have been doing extremely popular in terms of good quality lighting at an affordable price that can kind of fit in a bag and travel everywhere. What they've effectively done with this new generation is they've improved the chipset. So what that means is the LED lights or the LED diodes inside there are improved to give better lighting quality, which is great when you consider the price point is still the same as the original price point. So they've improved light quality and they're still the same price as the existing stuff. So that's super exciting.
It's a bit of an incremental upgrade, isn't it? So you can tell whether it's got an S at the end of the model number is whether it's the new one or previous generation.
Correct.
But do you think there's still going to be interest in the previous generation?
I think there's always interest in previous generation kits, like in anything. There'll always be those people that might not want to be an early adopter to a new technology or a change, and also they might also want to sniff out a bargain. I know particularly myself. Okay, right, if there's a new product, potentially the old one's going to come down in price, and if the old one was good, why would I not buy that and add that to my kit? So I think there will still be scope for it. I don't think it will drastically cannibalize their own market because the product does so well anyway. So I think all ranges will do well, sort of between them all. And then moving on from those guys,
just before we move on from the cobs, I wanted to talk a little bit about the color accuracy of them, because I just find it such an interesting message for Aputure to be using, or Amaran to be using, considering color accuracy is very good on all their other products. We have seen some lights starting to come out, like the iFootage anglerfish ones, which are really, really impressive, like a generation of LED light quality that I haven't really seen before. And obviously up at the high-end lights, which have always been very good, the light panel Geminis, Aputure's own stuff. Those are all sort of maybe a little bit of a notch below the iFootage ones, but pretty good still. Where do you think these are gonna sit?
It's a really interesting question on the basis that somebody that cares about the fidelity of light to that degree probably wouldn't buy a product like the Amaran. And that's kind of like it. So it's an interesting conversation. Like someone who's so going to look into it in the most granular detail probably isn't going to go for a product like that. They're going to be looking at, ARRI products or sort of other chipset technology. So it is really interesting. I think what the message is really is like, at all levels of production, we can offer you good quality, lighting. And I think as people early on in their career, they might feel that sometimes from a price perspective, they're not going to get the best possible technologies. So to be able to say, here's some really good lighting fidelity at an entry level point, that's really encouraging for new level creators. And when you see the TVCs around this product launch, it quite clearly is aimed at that market. It's kind of like those entry level users. And how good does that feel? As an entry level user, you get to go buy good quality, because normally as an entry level user, you tend to miss things. You tend to not get the bells and whistles, which is interesting. I think in your question as well, the iFootage, to me, when you look at the photometrics of that is still by far one of the best lights in the market in terms of that curve, in comparison to an SSI to 520. It's really good, but these guys have done like very well in comparison now. So comparing the two of them, they are very good for the price point, which is great news for early adopters.
I'll have to do a bit of a comparison shootout, maybe.
Yeah, that is something that I've got on my agenda. I'm going to do a comparison between the two and kind of look at how they fare, because I think for entry level, you want to try and get as best as you possibly can, and people at that higher echelon, budget's not an issue, because it tends to be the people producing the content that are paying for that, so you can get the best quality equipment, whereas at this level, people want to kind of get the best bang for their buck, which is pretty exciting.
But in terms of buying advice, if you were interested in the old ones, these ones now exist that are
100%.
slightly more colour accurate.
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't change the game too much.
Doesn't change it too much. And ultimately, for people that aren't aware, where does that really matter? It's in post-production. Okay, so when you finally shot your content, it looks great in camera. You sit down in front of to edit the content. When you adjust those colours, do those colours adjust accurately? Do they fly off the scale and leave colours all over the place? That's where you're going to see the most amount.
So something like fashion, where the colour of a dress is absolutely, or I remember Ferrari red could be something that's quite hard.
Exactly. You want that to be as accurate as it possibly can be, because you're working with Ferrari red, and someone in the scene is slightly red and flushed, and you sort of like make small incremental changes, and everything blows. So you kind of want to get everything as accurate as you can do, and that allows that. Historically, lights at that price point are pretty bad in terms of colour. So to be able to have that at that price point is, it's good for everybody. For sure.
And in a very similar lineup, Amaran also launched these Pixar tubes.
Yes.
Same idea. For the price point, what they can do is insane.
It's incredible. For the price point, if you want pixel controlled tubes, these are the most competitive products in the market. There isn't anything else that comes in at this price point for the features they have. And I think that's really exciting. And
what's a pixel controlled?
So what we do with pixel controlled tubes is, rather than it being one light that emits a solid block of light from one light source, we're able to segment down the light into multiple different segments. And this works best in tubes, because obviously the length of it gives you the ability to segment out. So then what that allows us to do is light different zones at different times. So we can make sequential kind of patterns, randomized patterns. So when it comes to special effects and lighting gags and stuff like that, pixel tubes really do dominate in that territory, because they have the control of multiple different lights within one source, which is really exciting. And that technology is amplified. You can look at some of the Sumo light stuff, and you can go buy a wall of pixel controlled lights, and it really does extend sort of to top in the production. But to have that product at that price point is really exciting. We had a lot of fun here with them as well.
Absolutely. We did a couple of really quite cool little virtual production setups, which you can see over on our Instagram or in the video that Luke made on the pixel tubes. And I think it's also worth pointing out that, of course, when everyone thinks of pixels, they think of the really obvious, the rainbow color effect. You can see all the colors whizzing up and down the tube, and that's not really how people actually use this technology out in the real world. It looks incredibly impressive for companies like us to show, but it's not actually how anyone's using them.
Correct.
But the sort of like fire effects, where the whole tube's one color, but various bits of the tube are at different brightness levels and flickering at different speeds than other sides of it. Things like that really help sell a natural look from the lights when it's
because when you
shown
take
on
that
someone's face.
When you take that technology on older model tubes, basically, because it's one light, as it switches on and switches off, the whole entirety of it switches on and switches off. And we know with things like fire, that doesn't happen. You know, fire is so randomized. So to be able to recreate that in a digital product creates a very natural effect. And that means when you're telling a story as a filmmaker, you know, you're able to tell a more convincing story rather than people look at it and go, oh, it's done on a budget, it's not great. If you spend some time and drill into it, you can really sell a story. And I think that's, again, it's something that's not been possible to do at that price point because you just don't have access to those technologies. Whereas now Amaran are allowing that to happen.
And it sounds like something you go, yeah, but I've never needed it, so why would I bother? But there are so many uses for this. For example, looking at you right now, that monitor beside you is creating light on your face. And so in the wide shot, sure, we'd just have the monitor maybe, or we could rig a tube above to emphasize that, to make it stronger. But if I move to a close-up where we can't see the screen, we might just turn that screen off entirely and use a pixel tube in TV effect instead in order to have a better, higher quality light on your face.
Exactly.
And more controllable light.
And historically, again, we go back in time, you know, you used to have to do that with things like a flicker box, you know, and a flicker box that really expensive. You have to wire a bit, like a lot had to go in to be able to recreate that. Whereas now you're just on your mobile phone or you push a few buttons on the tube and you've got a gag that, you know, a few years ago would have taken way more time to actually set up and shoot and stuff.
I remember doing fireplace shots. We did short films at university with fireplaces in. We did several, one of them out and about. And we just we had a generator, we had tungsten 2K lights, like pointed on the floor, burning the grass around it to try and light the actor's face. And we were all standing there with branches, waving branches in front of the lights to try and break it up a little bit and make it flicker. It's just so much easier now.
Yeah, LEDs have made lighting gags a lot easier in a lot of ways. And within that tube range, so there's 3 models. There is a 1 foot, a 2 foot, and a 4 foot. They all share kind of the same pixel technology, all share the same grip like access in terms of like having a 3/8 for each end, which is really useful, and also T12 in diameter. So when you compare these to the likes of Astera and some of the nanolite stuff and all the other tubes, even KinoFlow bulbs, they're all T12. So for instance, if you had an old KinoFlow head, you could strip the CCFL bulbs out of it, stick these pixel tubes inside it, and then use that to modify your light. So, you know, they're super compatible with what exists in the market already, which is very, very good.
Most important, do they have a UK police car, not just an American one with the red things?
They do.
Well, what they tend to do now is they let you choose what order. And so red and double flash or single flash, and has it got a white light in it, or is it red and blue, just red? And so now I have to sit and go, oh, what does a UK police car actually look like? I can't remember.
That was the last time you were pulled over.
Well, exactly. I have to look it up. I'm just too good.
Yeah, so they have come along in terms of like having those special effects that are more relatable to wherever you use them in the world, which again is great. And then the last thing in the lineup is the Infinity bars, which for me, I've really been massively impressed with these. I think it's a fantastic product. It's a bit like the Blackmagic box you were talking about a minute. People probably don't really know what they're going to use them for just yet, but they are going to start to use them in a lot of really exciting ways. So the thing with tubes is, because they're circular, when you butt them together, you get shadow, you get crossover, you get all those sort of problems that you would assign with. It's difficult to stack them. Because this is a bar design, they can stack lengthways, they can stack on top of each other. You know, you can create a flat surface out of these and then create a pixel effect across that entirety of the surface, which
So are there any gaps when they're together like that?
No, so when you bolt them up, they bolt together seamlessly.
It's a completely bezel-less design, which looks really smart.
It's fantastic. And to the degree that it's been designed, which I've been really impressed with, is little things like on the actual bars themselves, is they take AC over DC. So in terms of that, what that means is as you interconnect them and extend, you then get more stability in your current over a longer distance rather than the DC. So it's just little things like that, like taking into consideration that people are going to connect these together, use them over long distances. So the AC is the better version to kind of carry that current, which is super clever. And even on the app, You go into the app, it gives you pre-assigned templates that you can just assign lights to, click go, and then it will just start creating lighting patterns for you and stuff like
That's
that.
amazing. Is it true that the recent sightings of Northern Lights were actually the launch of these tubes?
the Aputure Infinity
that's
Bar.
A lot of Infinity Bars. Covered the UK in them.
So it was just a rumour.
Great example of pixel effects, though, to see the green going through the
Yeah.
sky.
There you go, exactly that. And sort of on the point of this, one of the things that allows it to be so usable, because obviously having a bar design is great from an individual unit, but the design to be interconnect and the thought that's gone into the grip that allows them to do so. So there's 10 separate bits of grip that you can buy individually or buy as kits or buy as
sorry, Luke, I believe there's 11.
11.
I
My
went and
apologies.
counted
Sorry,
them earlier. I don't want to stop you mid-flow. Whoa.
sorry,
Be
guys,
factually correct on this podcast, please.
We are correct. 11. So 11 bits of grip that you can then use to interlock and carry current between all of these, which will allow you to create all unique shapes. We've got some footage shown behind me, but you can see this all over the internet if you search Infinity Bar. There's loads of grip options, which is super exciting because with tubes, you know, I know people that 3D print their own grip to give them what they need from a gripping perspective for tube lights. Whereas this is like, here's the kit all ready to go. You know, you just have to kind of use it in your own way, which is, you know, again, great thought and shows that they're talking to people that are producing content and doing the things that these people are asking for, which is exciting for me.
There's some really cool potential with those connectors. Just like the star-shaped ones have got me interested. You know, being able to fill a big softbox from no distance. Because, of course, we all love these cob lights, which is what's lighting us right now. But if you think about the horizontal depth that is needed for the cob and then the distance from the softbox to create a nice big soft light, to go from that one singular point up to that big softbox, so much easier to create big soft light with a big star-shaped.
And a good example of that is like, you know, the Hudson Spider is a great example of a product that does
Exact same idea.
uses that same technical principle to achieve that. It's fantastic. You could go and build that yourself, you know, with a load of Aputure kit at a fraction of cost, which is fantastic. Like really, really, really exciting. So I think out of all of them, that was the most exciting. And on a personal note, I haven't had much experience dealing with like Aputure products. This is the first time for me, like joining ProAV, you know, and it's been really kind of eye-opening to see the level of quality that goes into these products and across from Aputure to Amaran. It's been sort of really eye-opening and I can't rate their products enough.
Sure. Yeah, no, exciting. Just wish they'd launched less than 30 products in one day, just for my own health and sanity.
Hopefully it's
Our web team are exhausted as well.
Yes, exactly. They've all got blisters on their fingers.
I would imagine it will be quiet now for a little bit, but yeah, we should see some more stuff potentially at the end of the year.
Oh dear. And the last thing I just wanted us to quickly chat about was BSC show, because of course that was it last week or
last week Friday.
Last week, which is by far, I think, one of my favourite shows in the UK. It's just got a really lovely feel about it. It's quite niche. It's tailored just for the sort of cinematic side of the industry. But it's a brilliant show. What did you guys think?
I've always loved the BSC show. It's just a little a bit smaller. The sort of type of people who go, it's got a nice feel to it, and I love that dark sort of cinematic feel that you look up and it's dark, and the fact you're in the middle of a park is rather nice too. Although I have been attacked by squirrels on the way in before, and that's not a euphemism. But it is it's probably my favourite sort of. Would you call it a boutique show? It's a bit bigger than that, isn't it?
It used to be very boutiquey. I don't think I would nowadays. I think it's much more mainstream. Can a show like that be mainstream?
Yeah, I guess it is.
You know what I mean? It's certainly much larger and caters to more people in the industry than it used to. But if you compare it to a show like what BVE used to be before it stopped happening, and what Media Production Show now is, I'd say those are a slightly wider demographic in terms of people. You're going to get corporate customers, you're going to get some cinema people, you're going to get broadcasters, you're going to get freelancers, whereas BSC really is about cinema and narrative
film.
toys.
Yeah.
what is really interesting for me is I've been attending BSC for for a few years now, and the mix of people going has been changing over the years. I think the last couple of years difficult to go by because of the whole kind of COVID situation, but this year particularly, the amount of upcoming filmmakers or people involved in film is fantastic. It used to be a bit of an old boys club, it kind of used to be like that, and that's what you come to expect. Whereas this year, it was full of young men, young women, old men, it was just a fantastic blend of people. It was really high energy from all of the manufacturers I'd spoke to that attended. They all had a really great show, and that's it's just so positive to hear that, a good positive show full of a great mix of people. It can only do good for our industry.
Could not agree more. Absolutely.
Was there any products that stood out for you guys from sort of being there?
I mean, it's hard not to go back to the Aputure stuff. So it was a bit of a weird situation for us with Aputure, weird. Wasn't it? Because we were there on the Friday and the launch was on the Tuesday. And so we had all these products here in the office and we'd been shooting with them.
We'd made content.
But under embargo. So we'd all signed an NDA to say you cannot talk about these products before 8 o'clock on Tuesday. And we turned up at their stand at BSC show and it's covered in it.
And we were like, do we post on social? Were we allowed to post? And I was like, it's probably safer to just not do anything that leaves BSC.
Did everybody else have to sign the NDA on the way into the show?
Bouncers by their stand.
No photos.
But I mean, the jokes aside, that did dominate, I think, in terms of new product and the products that people were talking about on the show floor. That was certainly one of the main ones I heard people talking about. Yeah. What about you guys?
I spent a bit of time on Teradek and sort of small HD stand looking at their new range because of COVID and various things. I knew they'd launched the new 6K bolts, but I hadn't actually seen them. And so to pick them up, to try the monitors with inbuilt bolt. What's going to make these super interesting soon is when 6 gigahertz technology is allowed in the UK. So basically this is a new Wi-Fi frequency which is coming imminently. I mean, it could be by the time we've transmitted this, it could be released. I think we were expecting it in February. So it's a little late now. But it means that this bandwidth won't be super saturated by everybody to start with. Right. So the wireless stuff from Teradek will be able to transmit in a sort of lovely, pristine, virgin frequency areas, which until now we haven't been allowed to use, which means they're going to be more reliable and better and have longer range. So I think this could be really interesting. So I can't wait for 6 gigahertz to be legal, so we can suddenly get this zero delay wireless stuff, which is rock solid, or at least it will be until everybody gets 6 gigahertz in their phones, microwaves, cars, and everything else.
What about you, Nathaniel?
For me, I think similar to what Carl mentioned in terms of we had things here already and kind of seeing it at BSC again, but I think. I think most of the things that I saw, even at the other show I went to, IBC as well, it's often that I've seen them before online, or you've watched reviews or you've heard about them, but then actually seeing them in person for the first time is nice. But in terms of standouts, probably the Aputure stuff, to be boring, but yeah, probably the Aputure stuff that we saw.
They know how to activate. I give them that. They do know how to activate. I think for me, the thing I personally liked was Blackout. So Jeff Brinks is a guy that's created a kind of a control software for the CMX sort of ArtNet platform, and he's got a version 2.0, which is fantastic, like really good. He's added some really cool features in there, such as almost like a console mode. So for instance, if you had 6 lights all tuned in on CMX, rather than kind of like drilling into them individually, you can just have a slider kind of format, almost like a traditional sort of DMX board, like a big console mod. Just makes it really easy to dial in what you're doing and stuff. And I think out of everything, because I'd already played with the Aputure stuff, the stand was fantastic, I've given that, but seeing 2.0 and being able to see Jeff talk you through it with all the passion he has, because it's his baby, was fantastic. I walked away going like, yeah, this is great. I'm going to go download the beta and kind of get into it. So for me, that was probably the standout bit.
Sure. I haven't seen any of that. I need to get you to show me
that.
Definitely. Right, I think that's a good place to leave it for this month. So thank you guys so much. I think that seemed a little bit more sort of coherent and less rambly. So hopefully people at home agree.
I like the chaos.
We're going to live in the chaos. Right, thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you, Nathaniel, for keeping us all under control and mixing at the same time, which is brilliant. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I'll see you all very soon. Bye.
T-minus 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Power, yep. Yeah, I got all the power.
Meet Aputure's first ever tube light, the MT Pro. 36 pixels in 1 foot, with CRMX in any color. Unleash your creativity with one or many. Leading the industry in pixel density, the MT Pro produces ultra-smooth chases and effects unmatched by any other light.
It's time to change the way we think about lighting. Introducing the new Anglerfish series from iFootage. Boasting cutting-edge color reproduction without sacrificing portability, the Anglerfish series makes cinematic lighting more accessible than ever. The Anglerfish series utilizes a bespoke construction and a new one-of-a-kind LED element to recreate the full spectrum of the sun with unbeaten accuracy. This unique LED element recreates the full daylight spectrum, but without the blue peak that's typically found in even the top studio lighting products.
I got my eye on the dance floor, eye on the door. Hey, a DJ, you like the way I sway? I gotta get it.
Lady, go!
1, 2, 3, 4. It's fast, yeah, you're gonna shut up. Battle your battles, you got a talent, how to the cure. If it's trash, yeah, you're gonna take it out. Handle it rapidly, got the magic, you got it for sure. You can see what's in your
Alpha.
Meet Swit's latest RGBW panel innovations, the Van Gogh 70 and Van Gogh 100 LED panels. The Van Gogh series uses exclusive edge-mounted RGBW SMD LEDs, which results in an extremely thin 21mm LED panel that is fanless, making zero noise on set. time division drive technology makes Van Gogh up to 60% brighter than its competitors in RGB mode. You can count on extreme color accuracy with a very high CRI and TLCI. Thinner, lighter, brighter, and quieter. These are the Van Gogh Ultra Slim RGB W panels by Swit.
Alpha.
minutes, 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Meet Aputure's first ever tube light, the MT Pro. 36 pixels in 1 foot, with CRMX in any color. Unleash your creativity with one or many. Leading the industry in pixel density, the MT Pro produces ultra-smooth chases and effects unmatched by any other light.
It's time to change the way we think about lighting. Introducing the new Anglerfish series from iFootage. Boasting cutting-edge color reproduction without sacrificing portability, the Anglerfish series makes cinematic lighting more accessible than ever. The Anglerfish series utilizes a bespoke construction and a new one-of-a-kind LED element to recreate the full spectrum of the sun with unbeaten accuracy. This unique LED element recreates the full daylight spectrum, but without the blue peak that's typically found in even the top studio lighting products.
I got my eye on the dance floor, eye on the door. Hey, a DJ, you like the way I sway? I gotta get it.
Lady, go!
1, 2, 3, 4. It's glass, yeah, you're gonna shatter it. Battle your battles, you got a talent, how to the cure. If it's trash, yeah, you're gonna take it out. Handle it rapidly, got the magic, you got it for sure. You can see what's in your jar.
Alpha.
Meet SWIT's latest RGBW panel innovations, the Van Gogh 70 and Van Gogh 100 LED panels. The Van Gogh series uses exclusive edge-mounted RGBW SMD LEDs, which results in an extremely thin 21mm LED panel that is fanless, making zero noise on set. The time division drive technology makes Van Gogh up to 60% brighter than its competitors in RGB mode. You can count on extreme color accuracy with a very high CRI and TLCI. Thinner, lighter, brighter, and quieter. These are the Van Gogh Ultra Slim RGBW panels by SWIT.
Alpha.